I'm happy to have with me today Sylvia Advas of Rock the Cradle Doulas, Montreal, although she's much more than that. Thank you
Oh,
so much for joining us on such short notice.
oh,
Uh,
my pleasure, Rivka. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. I can tell you've been working as a doula for many years and that you're a parent because you honestly, just like 5 minutes, oh, yes, for sure. Yes, I'm available at whatever time. It's good.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, no, it's been, I think now I just celebrated 8 years in the
wonderful.
world, and my daughter turned 9, and I did my training, and when she was just a newborn, when she was 2 months.
That's great.
Go by fast.
So, oh yes, yes, yes. My children died like they were a week old like 2 weeks ago, and now they're all adults and
I
driving
know.
cars and things like that.
It's crazy. And then we see our doula babies growing up on Facebook now
I
and
know.
media, and I'm like, what? How are they
Yeah,
getting already so big?
yeah. You're in high school? No.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Oh, it's lovely though. Very lovely. So I'm
So,
excited for this chat.
I usually ask people to introduce themselves because you know yourself better than I know you. So, if you wouldn't mind, just introduce yourself to our listeners however you want.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, this is like I was mentioning, I became a doula. I never once thought I would become a doula. Really, never, never. It never crossed my mind until I had children. And I had my son in 2007, and with the help of a lovely Montreal doula. And I'd never heard of doulas before being pregnant. And I just went through the system like so many people, right, Rivka? We call our gynecologists and we choose the hospital that's closest to our house, and that's where we go, and that's what I did. But I did get it was suggested to me to get some help, and we had a beautiful I had a beautiful birth and very positive. 2 years later I had another. I had my daughter this time in 2010, and with the help of another doula, and it just sparked something in my soul, and I was like, oh, more people have to know about this. And I started buying books, and it wasn't until I had my third child another 2 years later. So here we are in almost 2011. And my job, I was working in the university world here in Montreal, and my job was abolished. I was pregnant. I was 40 years old, and I was like, oh gosh, what do I do now? And I had been wanting more impact and wanting to serve in a different way, and I did not know how. And then my husband looks at my night table and he says, "Well, you've got 20 doula books on that night table. That's as if that's not a calling, what is?" And I said, "You know what? That's a great idea. I'm feeling called to do this and sharing, spreading my, versions of what, my births and wanting to help other women." And then here we are. I have an agency now with some lovely women, and we've served hundreds of families in Montreal, and even afar now, because we have an online class that's being sold around the world, which is amazing. So that's my story of how I got here and how I know you as one of the the long-standing doulas in Montreal.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad, and I'm so glad that you're actually part of an agency that's providing doulas for so many people. It's really so important. So I'm just going to introduce a little bit of the situation here to our listeners. Here in Montreal, Canada, we're living under some pretty severe restrictions. I know that birth workers everywhere are trying to figure out how to cope with the restrictions their governments have put in place. And as birth workers, we're respectful generally. We understand and respect that they've been put in place to try to limit the burden on our healthcare system and reduce the spread of COVID. But these restrictions, honestly, have affected birthing families very severely.
Mhm.
Here in Montreal, was restricted to providing only essential services. So I don't even know what that means in terms of birth work. We also have a curfew from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. And as we know, many babies come, or at least start to make their presence known at night. And doulas have been essentially banned from attending births in the hospital. So, first question for you:
Mhm.
is a doula in Montreal considered to be an essential service?
Well, you're asking a doula with a team of doulas. Yes, we think we're essential, right?
Yeah.
We definitely think we're essential. Our clients think we're essential. The hospital has said otherwise. In times like this where the numbers are very high and we get into a red zone, they, like you mentioned, you can only have one support person. So in most cases, when a couple is involved, well, then the doula is providing virtual support. Uh, yes, we have been told by our association. There's an association, a Quebec Association of Doulas, that we are essential workers. So we are still providing birth support at home. If the client, if women want to, as well as postpartum work afterwards. So it's a I wish the hospitals would see that, but I understand. I mean, I do understand where they're coming from, and there are some cases, Rivka, that doulas are still going occasional. I hear occasional stories of women being allowed doulas, calling their hospitals at the last minute and asking, "Can my doula come?" And they say yes.
Hmm.
But across the board, pretty much, it is a no in that regard.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
it's really nice to hear you say you respect and you understand where they're coming from, because honestly, that's the nature of the doula. Like as soon as you go into a hospital room, you can't go in there like some kind of militant,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
free birth person. You just can't. You have to go in there and you have to say, I respect where everyone's coming from. Put a little drop of that nice essential oil on that little hanky over there so everyone feels good and their shoulders drop when they come in the room,
Yeah.
and spread some love. Like it's just that's what a doula does. So
Yeah. We can't
obviously,
get there with the arms blazing, and fires blazing, and
yeah.
especially in these days. And the association here did a lot of work at the beginning for representation, and met with people from the ministry, and it's all volunteer, and they really did a lot of work. And we were heard. However, it's just beyond us at this point. That doesn't mean we still can't have our voices heard. However, to up level the reputation of doulas, and because a lot of people still don't know what we do, right?
Yeah.
Hmm. There have been some parents, and I said, let's get our parents involved. We think we're essential and we should be there because we know what we do. But if our clients are not, and if the families are not, putting their foot down and say, this has to happen, well, then, I think that's another level. So getting people involved. I know at the beginning, when one of the hospitals was denying partners at the birth, then the media got involved, parents got involved, petitions were signed, and there was change back to having two people. So there can be mobilization. I think right now everyone's in this waiting pen.
Well, I've heard that there is a little bit of mobilization, and I'm going to put the letter in the show notes. I think that parents are being asked to write letters to the ministry because I think they're having a meeting sometime next week. Or anyway, things are happening. So if you are at all interested, if anyone's out there and they're at all interested in writing that letter, I'm going to put the indications to it in the show notes. So it's really important for laboring families to have what they need in the hospital, and if that's a doula, then so be it. We'll figure it out.
Yes, and you might have other statistics, but I think it's about 10% of births have doulas, if not even. I'm not up on my recent stats, but that's where this frustration comes, is when someone really wants that support and they're being denied the support, right? And then that just snowballs into a whole bunch of other a story that was not part of their story. That's not what they
Exactly.
wanted.
Yeah.
So
And doulas are so good at helping people on a journey that does take different paths. Like if you're already on that journey and it's taking a different path from what you wanted, a doula is the very best person to be by your side. So to prevent that from happening is difficult.
Mhm.
So
Go ahead, go ahead.
are doulas allowed to go into people's homes at this point?
Well, we have been told yes, and I'm following our association here in Quebec. And when you talked about a curfew before, and then the challenges. Well, yeah, like you said, I mean, birth happens at night. If we are able to go into people's homes and help support them, uh, uh, if we are allowed, what happens if at 3 in the morning we leave to go home and then we do get stopped by the police? So there are letters circulating saying that we are essential, sir. We are essential, and that we are helping women in birth, and we're just on our way either to help or going home. I have not heard of any cases of doulas being stopped. However, at this point, it's quite new, but it raises a bunch of questions. Definitely. Like no
It
one,
definitely
and
does.
they're fining people. There's a fine. Like here, it's a curfew, but it's a fine from $1,000 to $6,000. No doula wants to to pay.
No.
And then if you have a letter, what weight does that letter have actually in the eyes of who we're in front of? So there's a slight risk that some people, I guess, are not willing to take, and others are.
Yeah. So what are the effects that you have witnessed of these restrictions and the curfew and all the kind of bureaucratic stuff? What effect have they had on the birthing families that you're working with and that the doulas that your colleagues are working with?
Hmm. The levels of anxiety, I think women and families are already anxious during a pandemic, and then to add even more restrictions, the before partners would attend appointments with their spouses, and now they're not attending. And then now with the curfews and the added restrictions, yeah, anxiety levels are off the roof. And then it also it limits the type of support that they want. Already here in Montreal with the red zone, couples in most hospitals are only allowed one support person. So if there is a couple, well, then the spouse will normally attend. If parents, or if a woman wants just has one support person, well, then her doula can attend. But these restrictions are limiting the type of support that families do want, and that would find helpful, and that I believe have allows them to have different outcomes. Does that make sense, Rivka? Do you see that as well?
Well, I'm seeing the other side of the coin. I'm seeing
Mm.
people who are calling me and saying, I do not want to go anywhere near the hospital.
Mm.
And I do not want to have a birth with a registered midwife because they won't allow my doula in the birthing
Yeah.
center. And I don't want to have to push with a mask on. Whether or not these things are true doesn't even matter. They're in the women's minds.
Mm-hmm.
And so people are calling me saying, will you prepare me for an unassisted birth?
Mm.
Like, I don't think that's particularly safe. It's not the best option. We're social animals. We weren't made to give birth completely on our own. If women are being pushed to that extreme, like, I'm here to serve, but
Yes,
it,
and we have heard of families wanting that and just saying, well, if you guys are not going to allow us the options that we want, then we'll take things into our own hands. I agree, that's not always the best option. For some, it might be. However, I think a lot of our clientele at Rock the Cradle birth at the hospitals. So it hasn't been our experience, but the mask, we have had calls, am I going to have to wear the mask when I push? And we've had clients not have to wear it. And then some who have had to, or were told to wear it.
mm-hmm.
And I'm all about your options and your power as a birthing woman, and no one can actually force you to do anything. However, people, we go to these places and it's not our home. We're in someone else's home, and we want to follow as much as we can. But so this, the support of having a doula, then, even in preparing for birth at this time, allows you to go through what your options are. And perhaps, having that support. We're offering support at home before going to the hospital. And that's allowing our clients to stay home longer and spend less time at the hospital. We've noticed a good result in that sense, where couples will feel comfortable staying home because they have the help. but you're right. The restrictions, it's not a good time. There's this extra level of stress. And now with curfew, there's a bunch of, the doulas are asking, am I going to get caught? If I go to someone's home, should I even be going? Because if I get caught and get fined $1,000 to $6,000, and there have been some cases of some osteopaths that we've heard of recently who did get fined, even with a letter from their association, then I was like, well, okay, osteo versus doula support and birth does happen at night, but it's, making us question, all right, which letters do we need to have with us? Whose approval do we have to have? Is it the doctor? Do we call the police station and get their, approval prior, just to alleviate some of the stress?
Well, I know here in Quebec, one of the frustrating things that I found running a business, as well as now looking into the whole question of if a birth companion is an essential service, one of the problems is that the actual legislation itself is so vague. Like literally, I was looking at it the other day, and it said that certain types of medical practitioners, and then it says such as massage therapists. Okay, so massage therapists could have a green light, great. And then there were a couple of others, and then it said and so on.
Yeah.
What is and so on?
What does that mean?
So does that mean if a policeman is in a bad mood, he doesn't like maybe how you look, he can give you a fine, and then someone else wouldn't get a fine? Because and so on is no way to run a business
policy.
Like, what would I say when someone comes in and wants a large bowl? How much does it cost? Oh, it costs kind of around I don't know, like $10 to $15.
No, it makes no sense. And that's why, a lot of people don't even know what a doula is. So imagine, I'd love to ask some police officers, do you actually know what a doula is? A lot of them probably wouldn't, and then you get into a whole other story with them. So these are the questions that we're asking ourselves as a team. So trying to prepare for our upcoming births with clients, because we still want to serve them, and we still will. It's just trying, have all our bases covered to avoid the issues.
To avoid that issue. And honestly, I mean, the kind of ridiculous thing is, if you have a police officer and a doula out there in the middle of the night discussing a letter, that is a waste of both of their time.
Yes, of course.
Like, a police officer has way better things to do with their life, and a doula has way better things to do with their life. So I
think they feel the same way. I think they do feel the same way.
Yeah. So let's talk about the babies. Have you and your doula colleagues noticed babies acting in any particular way? Like, I've been speaking to some midwives, and we're noticing unusually long labors or unusually short labors, like either very long pregnancies. Like, I don't usually see so many 42.5-week pregnancies. And I'm not talking unassisted. I'm talking people that are actually being followed by doctors or registered midwives. Babies are going to 42 weeks and then taking a really long time after induction has started. And early labor too, premature birth, I think, is increasing again. So are you noticing?
Yes. Oh, I agree. We've a couple of trends. I think we've seen. At one night, we had 3 clients go, have early labor symptoms, but they were 34 to 35 weeks, so clearly not ready. However, I agree also with the long, the longer gestation, the longer pregnancies, where it's like the babies don't want to come out. They're like, no, don't keep me here. I'm comfortable. I'm a bit stressed already, because I believe that the babies can feel our stress as mothers. Not to put any blame on moms, of course, but it's normal. We're attached. So I've seen the early, and we've had some very fast births as well, which I am thankful for. And that can be this, subconsciously the woman say, I've got to get this done and get out of here as quick as possible as well. So it's interesting. To see across the board. We got them all across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit though, about how we can at the same time affirm to mothers that we're all living through an incredibly stressful time, and help mothers not to do this thing that all of us do, which is blame ourselves for everything. Like, oh, I'm stressed. Like, yeah, I'm stressed. I'm living through a pandemic. How's it going to affect my child? Probably badly. So how do you and your colleagues work to relieve that?
Mm. Yeah, I think listening and providing the space for them to say what's on their minds and in their hearts without any judgment. Often, I think people in our surroundings might be very quick to just negate any of those feelings. Oh, of course not. Don't be silly. The baby will be fine. But I think these are valid, and to validate what we're feeling, and also to say, you know what, I think your baby's really, probably very resilient, just like you are. And you will get through this, and baby will get through this. And just imagine when baby's in your arms, and really go into that space of loving and caring, but providing that support for them to know that they're what they're feeling is normal. My gosh, hats off to all of the parents who are delivering in the time of a pandemic, whether it's was planned or not planned. There are some challenges that didn't have to go through when I was delivering my babies, and but I think that's where that doula support can come in, is really helping. And we provide tools as well. Okay, well, if you're really stressed right now, how about we try a beautiful affirmation, or how about a guided meditation for you? Let's sit together. Let's really getting down to the issues at hand. What are you afraid of? Just talk to me, tell me. And then we really get to the heart of things, because sometimes it's something that we didn't even think of, or that they didn't even think of, and it pops up, right? So, and I think, having seen hundreds of births in our team, we can really say, you know what, you're not the only one. And that's I think people like to see that, okay, I'm not the only one. I'm not crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, no, you're not, and we do blame. Guilt, mommy guilt is real. And so many people have it for so many different things. But yeah, as I think listening is a really big part of the support that we offer.
So listening, of course, you already mentioned that, you try and provide the doula care that we all used to provide before, but going to people's homes when you can, and then attending them virtually when you can't. Do you have any other ways that you're providing laboring mothers with care and love?
Yeah, we're finding that it's really hard to create community right now, particularly in person, where I think where we would often create. I know I created community at work or in classes I was taking, so that in-person community. What we've decided, is let's go virtual, of course, so many people are on Zoom. We created at the beginning of the pandemic a group for mummies and babies, and that is booming. It's an amazing group to, and to watch them go. And it's peer-to-peer support with the guidance of a doula. My colleague Mika Rock hosts these every week at 2:00 at 1 p.m. Tuesdays at 1 p.m. And we'll put the link in the show notes for you if you'd like to join, and babies of all ages. And it's just been growing, because I think there is a need for community, particularly here in Montreal in the wintertime, when it's getting really cold and people don't want to go out. This is great. And even if your baby's napping, come on and join the party. We've also created one. We said, well, okay, well, if the pregnant, if the moms with babies are finding it hard, maybe the pregnant moms are too. So this week we have our brand new virtual pregnancy support group starting for our clients and people who would like to join in. There is a small cost to that, per session. But again, to have that community, and to see that I'm not alone in experiencing perhaps nausea or sciatica, or I can't go out, I'm feeling a little down, like my doctor is making me feel a bit afraid, or I don't feel I have support, my spouse is always working. All of these things, we share them. And that, I remember being pregnant and just just knowing I had a friend who was going through the same thing, really, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, you too. All right, okay. Well, I peed 3 times last night. How many times did you get up, Rivka, last night? You know? So having those friends, I think it's important. So we're starting those this week, and we'll see how that goes.
When is the pregnancy one?
That are Wednesday nights at 6, Wednesday
Okay.
evening, 6 p.m.
Okay.
to 7. And we've already got a group signed up, which is amazing. And it's a great start to, create that community. Because, not everyone has pregnant friends around them either. So
Exactly.
And our spouses don't know what we're going through.
It's just good to have a community. That's the
Isn't
thing.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, all of the work that you are doing and that everyone at Rock the Cradle is doing, and in fact, all of the doulas and birth workers that I know, in fact, around the world, we put a lot out. So how do you give yourself and your doula colleagues, how do you give yourselves the love and care and attention that you need? It's much easier, obviously, when we're not living through a pandemic. So what do you all do?
Yeah, what a great question. And I coach a lot of women, and we're always, I always come back to that, where we give, give, give. If we're mothers, we're even giving, giving, giving. We're daughters, we're spouses, we're friends. It's a lot of giving. So replenishing your cup is super important. I love my solo time. So if I speak for myself, I do need a lot of me time. And whether I'm journaling or reading or sitting in silence, looking outside at the trees, nature for me is a big one. I love walking. I'm blessed to live by the water here in Montreal, and I can go for an hour or two and hugging trees and touching trees and talking to the water and the birds. And, that grounds me a lot. I think coming together, I started a team because I needed community as a doula. It can be very lonely working by yourself. I found, for me, I'm very social. So I worked by myself for 4 years and then created a team. So for us, it's important to come together as a team. Even if there's nothing on the agenda, we just come together. How are you doing? And sharing tidbits of information, and it's our own doula community as well. And ensuring that my team is taking time for themselves and that they are, not overgiving and not taking for themselves once in a while too. So I know Mika is a yoga teacher, and her practice is yoga, and attending. I know you do your monthly full moon circles. My colleague Mika, and that, though they're lovely, lovely events, and that's so important. Yeah. What do you do, Rivka? How do you fill your cup?
Oh my, honestly, I just said last night when I went to bed, I lay down and I said to my husband, I could never be bored.
Yeah.
Like, I do think boredom is a good thing. I actually do. My kids used to complain that they were bored every so often, and I tell them that's great. So just lie there and be bored, sit down and be bored. This is very good. I run. I'm a runner. But I love to read. Honestly, I feel like I have a very full cup in a good way.
Yeah, lovely. It's so important. Yes. And with I still have small children at home, so you're right. I'm never bored. That is not a word that crosses my mouth. Running a business and running a family, there's always something.
There's always interesting things.
Yeah.
So, do you notice though that the doulas that you're working with are like, obviously we all are reacting differently to the pandemic. Have you had any difficult situations with anyone just having, not being able to cope, or not wanting to work within the community, like not wanting to do in-person visits for whatever reason? Or
not on my team. I know at the very, very beginning, and we have a broader community of doulas as well, different Facebook groups and whatnot, and people were taking a stance of, okay, I'm not comfortable doing this, would you take over in case, and fielding those types of calls, and that everything is legitimate, right? If, it's all about personal risk. Who do we have at home? Who are we protecting? Who do we live with? And there's lots to mitigate. Now that the pandemic, we have more information. I sense, I don't want to say comfort, it's not comfortable, but being more comfortable knowing what's going on, and being comfortable going to, say, a hospital or a home birth, and it's all about, having that information. So yes, I would say, but that's what I've seen so far. But there are people taking it very hardly, just say income wise, because a lot of women, financially, I think, has been the biggest struggle for many doulas.
Absolutely, because you're self-employed and you're probably not getting as much demand as before.
Yeah, and having that, helping women look at what other offerings can they have. Okay, let's, those two words that I said I wouldn't, pivot and adapt. Let's do this. We're pivoting to online services. We're adapting our services. What can we offer? What can we package differently? Perhaps a doula who hasn't been teaching online, well, now she can perhaps put an offering together. So our team was already online. I did put out I had filmed it earlier, I think in two years ago, and we just hadn't put it up, but I did finalize at the beginning of the pandemic an online course with 30 modules and 30 lessons, and really an online prenatal class. So I was like, okay, the pandemic gave me a kick in the butt to get that out there, and I can sell that all over the world, but so I help other doulas as well, repackage their offerings, and resilience. I see that. It's a resilient crowd.
Well, I think we need to move forward with getting our voices out there in terms of just changing things so that it's going to be with us for a decently long time from now. And I think it's really important to actually have, at least give birthing families the choice of being able to have a doula and a partner. Or like, I remember I was just speaking to a family a couple of weeks ago. They wanted, the birthing mother wanted her mother and her doula there. She was fine not having her spouse there, but two people.
Yes.
I know, but two people. It's not that much. It's not the end of the world, and we shouldn't be allowing the it almost seems like a punishment, a random kind of thing, not to allow doulas into the hospital. I think there's a movement growing here in Montreal to make a difference.
Yeah, and the work where it needs to go now. I mean, as doulas, we think we're essential, and our association, of course, thinks we're essential, and they've done lots of work throughout the pandemic. And now we're taking it. Let's get the parents involved, because it's they're the users of doulas, and they are the ones that want us. So we need everybody to come in large numbers, because the larger than our numbers, the more we can clamor for what we want and what our clients want, and giving them the options.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. The births that we have attended in the summer, we were attending more in person, and just to give them credit, the nurses were like, "Oh, thank gosh, you guys are here again."
Of course,
right?
It's not the nurses that are making the laws.
No, it is the bureaucrats.
Yeah.
It is the bureaucrats, and it's the people higher up that don't see what happens perhaps on the floor.
Yeah.
But the nurses were like, "God, I can't wait till you go back."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's credit to you and your organization that you've managed to retain and maintain a good relationship with the medical staff, because I think that that's a kind of a reputation that doulas do not deserve. And I know that that's why I stopped working as a doula, because I realized that I was going to start getting into conflict with the medical staff, and that is absolutely not needed in a birth situation. So good on you.
Yes, that I think is that the patient's part of it, and I have felt that way too, Rivka. I think I share that with you. There are moments in time, it's like a roller coaster sometimes, and I think when we feel that way, and when I'm coaching other doulas, is okay, we do need to take a step back and remember why we're doing this, and just take a break, you know, and recenter ourselves, and really see, is that the right, is that where our efforts need to be? Perhaps they can be on a different level as well. It doesn't mean we need to, you know, your voice as a doula is super important in the world, and how can, just where is that going to be? Perhaps, you know, the hospital setting is not the one anymore, right? And it's somewhere else, but
Exactly.
hence the movement, right? Hence the getting, you know, getting everybody together and rallying the troops. But yeah, you know, I see that, and I'm blessed with a team who loves birth. They're passionate about birth, and have the personality to play in that field. Yeah.
Well, I know a couple of them personally, and they're lovely.
I know they were trained by you, Ida and Mika, both, and Jenny. You know all my team. Yes, that's right. Yeah, my team are, you know, Rivka fans.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing. In spite of the tech gremlins that seem to be following us around, I'm going to put both of the gatherings that you're having on the show notes. So if any of you any of you listeners heard about that and are interested, they'll be in the show notes as well. I'm going to be putting 2 letters that that as a parent you can copy it and write off to the Ministry of Health here in Quebec. Last question. One word that you would give our listeners or the world. What would it be?
My word is always love. Love. That is my word. I stand by that, and it's benefited me greatly. You know, in different situations with clients, with going to births in a hospital situation that perhaps is not an easy one. In my family life, and seeing people on the street in a pandemic, you know, it's when I come with love, I receive love back, and that's the ebb and flow for me. It's part of that filling of my cup, and that is my word. I think my life word. I have a word for every year, but that's my life word, love. And I think if everyone came forward with a bit more, you know, bit more love, we would be a more peaceful place, the earth that we live on at the moment. But there is still a lot of love out there.
There is a lot of love, and I think the more we say it, and the more we say it out loud, and the more we say it, you know, out on the media, I think that the people will be less shy to say it and to feel it and to say, I love you.
Yeah. Right.
So
That's my mask. I'm not wearing. You can't see it on a podcast, but the mask that I wear all the time, it's pink and red, and it says love on it. And
that's so great.
I get a lot of stares. But then I was like, you know what? I said, why are they staring at me? And I'm like, oh, it's my mask. Well, I'm just emanating love to you. You know.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I can feel it.
Oh,
listeners, can you feel it?
I hope so. But thank you so much, Rivka. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure spending this time with you, and I'm so happy to have you in my community and being part of your community. And it's big together work like this that we will make changes.
We will. All those concentric circles and the love radiating out.
Yes.
Well, I have to say, I love you, Sylvia.
Well, I love you. Thank you. Oh,
Thank you so much.
I got goosebumps.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Feel the love, share the love, and good luck with all your endeavors.
Thank you so much.